Scientists have discovered something similar to Atlantis, near Australia. There used to be an entire continent that is now submerged. See what happened to it. About 70,000 years ago, during the last ice age, there was a massive landmass called Sahul. It was located in the southwestern Pacific Ocean. This ancient supercontinent united what we now know as Australia, New Guinea, Tasmania, and the Aru Islands into one giant landmass. Imagine lush rainforests surrounded by beautiful mountains. The highest mountains of Sahul were in the highlands of New Guinea, with peaks reaching over 3,900 meters. This beautiful place was home to a variety of unique animals, most of which were marsupials. Back then, however, it wasn't just koalas and kangaroos. Sahul was full of different types of grazers, diggers, scavengers, and predators. It was home to a giant diprotodon, a powerful thylacoleo hunter, and a terrifying megalania, a creature much larger than any living lizard today. It was a unique place, because the rest of the world was filled with placental animals at the time, such as wolves, elephants, and humans. In Sahul, the only common mammals were bats and rodents, but not all of its regions were the same. The areas of Timor, Arafura, and Carpentaria were covered by warm savannas and dry forests. It looked somewhat like modern Australia, with hot deserts, shrublands, steppes, and temperate forests along the eastern coast. At that time, people were migrating all over the world. They made an incredible journey from Southeast Asia to Sahul and arrived for the first time between 60,000 and 45,000 years ago. They traveled mostly on foot and crossed the sea, using bamboo rafts and simple boats. They came from an ancient landmass called Sunda, which included parts of Southeast Asia. They traveled through a series of islands known as the Wallaceian Archipelago, and eventually spread across Sahul. And it wasn't a small journey. Sahul was enormous, about 10.6 million square kilometers. That's larger than the United States or Canada. It stretched from the equator down to the southern part of New Zealand. Thus, they reached what is now Australia and became the first Australian people. Scientists believe Sahul had a population of about 500,000 people. We have discovered cave paintings dating back around 40,000 years. One depicts a hunting scene showing a miniature buffalo, known as an anoa, facing human and animal figures. Researchers are trying to understand how these early settlers moved through Sahul and where we can find archaeological evidence of their journey. To do this, they created a landscape evolution model. The simulation showed how Sahul changed between 75,000 and 35,000 years ago. It revealed possible migration routes and archaeological sites. Humans likely traveled along coasts and rivers. But how did Sahul become submerged off the coast of Australia, similar to the mythical Atlantis? During the last ice age, much of Earth's water was trapped in massive ice sheets and glaciers. Sea levels were much lower than they are today. After that, global temperatures rose. The ice sheets melted, and sea levels rose, flooding the land bridges that once connected different parts of Sahul. Around 8,000 years ago, New Guinea separated from mainland Australia. And about 6,000 years ago, Tasmania did the same. We can still explore the underwater parts of Sahul thanks to new technology. Divers explore and collect samples directly from the ocean floor. Underwater drones can reach deep or dangerous places that are difficult for humans to explore. And with sonar mapping, scientists use sound waves to create maps of the ocean floor. It's like using an echo to see what's underwater. Sound waves bounce off the seafloor and return, helping us create an image of its features. In deep waters, archaeologists have found stone tools and other artifacts. They have also discovered fossils of animals like the Diprotodon and Thylacoleo. By studying the underwater terrain of Sahul, they have learned about the ancient rivers, lakes, and shorelines that existed during the Ice Age. But Sahul is not the only underwater continent. There's another hidden gem in Southeast Asia, Sundaland. This place was once formed by Sumatra, Java, Borneo, and several other islands. It was enormous during the Ice Age, but is now almost entirely submerged. Almost, but not completely. The parts above water are filled with life. If you like birds, check this place out. It has nearly 1/5 of the world's bird species. You can spot colorful birds like the Javan hawk eagle and barn swallows flying among lush forests. It is also home to 1/4 of the world's fish species. The waters of Sundaland are a paradise for marine life, including exotic animals like Asian arowanas. It is also a treasure trove of flowers. It's where you can find the Rafflesia and Titan arum, the largest flowers in the world. That makes it very similar to Zealandia. Zealandia is a long, narrow landmass about half the size of Australia. It separated from Antarctica around 100 million years ago. Like Sundaland, it is not entirely submerged. 7% of it remains above sea level. This small portion above water is what we now call New Zealand, along with Stewart Island and some smaller islands. These areas are lush and warm, full of volcanoes, mountain ranges, beautiful natural geysers, and hot springs. The local Maori people use these hot springs for cooking. People place corn, eggs, and vegetables in baskets and set them directly into the hot springs. Sometimes they cook food in an earth oven using heated stones. Another hidden world is known as Argoland. This mysterious landmass was once part of Australia, back when dinosaurs roamed there. It puzzled scientists for decades. They knew it existed because it left behind a massive stretch on the ancient seafloor, the Argo Abyssal Plain. Around 155 million years ago, it broke away from Australia and drifted north. When it reached Southeast Asia, it simply disappeared. Scientists had no idea where it went, but recently they finally found its remains. It turns out that the lower parts of poor Argoland began sinking into the Sunda Trench, a horrifyingly deep ocean trench. The Earth's crust sank into the mantle. Meanwhile, the upper parts of Argoland were pushed upward, merging with younger land masses. Because of this, Argoland broke into smaller pieces. These fragments formed parts of Borneo, Java, Sulawesi, and other regions. The remains are buried beneath Indonesia and Myanmar. Imagine a colossal landmass the size of Greenland, Greater Adria. Its journey began around 240 million years ago, when it split from the supercontinent Gondwana. It started moving north, and after 100 million years of drifting through warm seas, it suddenly crashed into Europe and shattered. Most of its pieces sank into the Earth's mantle, but some were scraped off and became parts of mountain ranges like the Alps. Today, the remnants of Greater Adria are scattered across more than 30 countries, from Spain to Iran. That's why they are so difficult to find. Seychelles was also once part of Gondwana. Yes, those idyllic islands sit on top of an ancient continent. We know a lot about it because of its fascinating granite outcrops. 100 years ago, Alfred Wegener discovered continental drift, but no one believed him. These granite outcrops helped prove that he wasn't crazy, and that tectonic plates really do move. The Seychelles separated from India and Madagascar, and eventually became a lonely island in the Indian Ocean. This probably happened due to some insanely active volcanoes in the Deccan Traps. But now, the islands are home to unique species, both on land and in the nearby coral reefs. Mauritius split from India after the extinction of the dinosaurs. Along its journey, it stretched into a long, ribbon-like shape, and also broke into pieces. Now, it is scattered beneath the Indian Ocean. Scientists discovered this lost land while studying tiny ancient crystals called zircons. These zircons are like time capsules. They date back an incredible 660 million to 2 billion years ago. That is even older than Mauritius itself. These ancient crystals suggest that there may be another Atlantis hidden somewhere nearby. It turns out that there are hidden continents all over the world, and perhaps we will discover even more in the future. In 1952, a U.S. Air Force plane called the C-124 Globemaster II crashed into a massive mountain while flying from Washington to Alaska. Unfortunately, all 52 people on board did not survive. Bad weather made it difficult to locate the wreckage, and even after it was found, all attempts to recover it failed. However, in 2012, a team of helicopter pilots on a training mission spotted pieces of the crashed plane on a glacier called Colony Glacier in Alaska. They began searching for more fragments and confirmed that it was indeed the missing aircraft. Since then, every summer for about a decade, different military teams have helped with an operation called Colony Glacier. They have managed to identify 40 of the 52 people who lost their lives in the crash. The soldiers participating in this mission take seriously the promise of never leaving a fallen comrade behind. They believe it is their duty to bring back those who did not survive. Another discovery comes from the Alps. In 1991, some hikers exploring the picturesque Alps stumbled upon a human body. It was partially frozen in ice at the top of a mountain pass between Italy and Austria. At first, local police thought it might be a modern climbing accident. But within weeks, archaeologists began to claim that this man could have lived more than 5,000 years ago. They ended up giving the frozen man the nickname Ötzi. His name was inspired by the Ötztal Valley, located nearby. He became quite famous as the oldest ice mummy ever recorded. Ötzi's frozen state may not be as unique as we once thought, and that's where things get really interesting. Archaeologists have another theory. At first, everyone was convinced that Ötzi marked the start of a colder period because he had been frozen in ice without any interruption since he lost his life. However, in recent decades, glaciers and ice patches around the world have been melting like ice cream on a hot summer day. Not only Ötzi, but other ancient relics, such as bodies, hunting equipment, horse manure, and even ancient skis, have started to appear. So, archaeologists say there may be similar sites elsewhere. They have found several, and all of them fit perfectly into this growing field of glacial archaeology. It seems that as the world warms up, it will reveal even more ancient secrets hidden in deep freeze. Let's move on to another surprising discovery. In 2018, William Taylor and Nick Jarman were exploring the snowy slopes of the Altai Mountains in Mongolia. They came across an ancient treasure hidden in the ice. Inside this treasure, they found a well-preserved 3,000-year-old arrow shaft, decorated with ochre markings. It was in perfect condition, a rarity for organic items this old. They also found other items, such as a bronze arrowhead with pieces of animal tendons still attached. All these relics remained untouched for centuries, locked away in the ice. In Mongolia, rising temperatures have melted glaciers that had remained frozen for centuries. Similar discoveries have been made in the Yukon in the United States, Italy, Siberia, and Norway. Thousands of sites have been identified. However, scientists are racing against time to document and preserve these artifacts before they are lost forever. Studying these artifacts challenges the idea of these environments being completely wild and shows how indigenous people coexisted with nature in these places. Sometimes, people also find simple items, something as simple as a sandal. This sandal, discovered in a mountain pass in central Norway, suggests that people used this route about 1,700 years ago. This indicates that there was less snow and ice in the region back then. The sandal, which dates back to around 300 BC, resembles Roman sandals from that time. Again, in Norway, hunters found an iron sword high up in the mountains, more than 1,600 meters above sea level. There are no known burial sites nearby, making it puzzling why someone would have a sword in such a remote location. Archaeologists speculate that the owner may have gotten lost. About this place, where there is only ice as far as your eyes can see. Antarctica is one of the world's continents and is located in the southern hemisphere. It is the fifth largest in terms of total area, meaning it is almost twice the size of Oceania. Want to see real meteorites? Go to Antarctica. Due to its dry climate, it is one of the best places to observe space. But what is even more incredible is that meteorites can be seen on the continent's white surface. Scientists have already retrieved about 45,000 of them from the ice and believe they may find another 300,000. Since there aren't many terrestrial rocks there, they are easy to identify due to their dark color. The dry, desert-like environment also helps preserve them, even those that fell to Earth over 1 million years ago. And can you imagine volcanic activity in Antarctica? It's hard, but this is the place where fire meets ice. West Antarctica is the site of the greatest volcanic activity. Scientists recently discovered that there are 138 volcanoes in that region alone. Wow! You might think the region is always cold, but no. Its coastal areas can reach 10 degrees Celsius. But have you ever wondered what Antarctica would be like without ice? It may seem unimaginable now, but it wasn't always covered in ice. However, that was 34 million years ago, so no one could say what the continent's surface looked like. But NASA changed that. The space agency used computer simulations and created the most accurate map to date. What they found was incredible. The continent was not flat as it appeared. It is quite rugged, with valleys, plains, and high mountains. But that was nothing compared to what was discovered beneath the ice. So, what is it? Drum roll, please. NASA found 2 new subglacial lakes, and what's even cooler is that they were spotted from space. How is that possible? If your answer is high-tech satellites, you are correct. In 2003, NASA launched a satellite called IceSat, which measured the ice sheet's mass balance and cloud and aerosol heights. The equipment also helped create the ice-free map of Antarctica. In 2010, the European Space Agency launched a second satellite, CryoSat-2, to track changes in ice thickness. Then, in 2018, NASA sent the third, IceSat-2, a continuation of the first. It measured the ice sheet's elevation and the thickness of sea ice. It was the most advanced laser Earth observation instrument the American agency had ever launched and provided the highest precision data. And When this was combined with information from the other satellites, they were able to locate these two new lakes near two larger ones. But how can they exist in the first place? The average thickness of most Antarctic ice is about 2 kilometers. However, in some places, it can reach over 3 kilometers, especially during winter. So you might think there is nothing underneath, but science says otherwise. It is not visible to the naked eye, but the continent's ice is slowly and steadily flowing in different directions under the force of its weight. However, scientists could not figure out how water moved for many years. That began to change in 2007 when data collected with ICESAT provided insights into what lies beneath the surface. For the first time, they discovered an entire network of interconnected meltwater lakes beneath Antarctica's fast-flowing ice streams, and there were hundreds of them. Glaciologist Helen Amanda Fricker from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography believes that the elevation changes measured by ICESAT occurred due to the dynamics of these lakes. They did not retain meltwater statically. Instead, they filled and drained continuously over time through a system of waterways, and, as they did, the ice above rose and fell. But where do they drain? Into the ocean, of course, and a lot. A recent study co-authored by Fricker found that the drainage of one lake flooded up to 750 billion liters into the ocean in just 3 days. Countless mysteries about how nature works are still waiting to be solved. But the discovery of these two new lakes will give scientists a better picture of how quickly Antarctica's ice sheet will change as the climate warms, how it will affect global ocean currents, and how it will contribute to rising sea levels. The cycle of filling and draining also causes the ice sheet to crack and fracture. So the information they gather from these new lakes will also give them a better understanding of the damage on the ice's surface. They will also be able to assess how this filling and drainage system influences the speed at which ice slides into oceans and seas. This means they can evaluate how the addition of fresh water might alter marine ecosystems. This discovery could even suggest whether life exists beneath the ice. Wow! Scientists drilled about 1,070 meters into the ice and found that water samples from one of the lakes contained approximately 10,000 bacterial cells per milliliter. Such a high number of bacterial life is a good sign because it means the icy waters could also support higher life forms, such as microanimals. And one of these new lakes may even be home to them. But the most exciting aspect is that these new lakes could help determine whether life is possible on other planets. Scientists believe that any form of life beneath the frozen surface of Mars might follow the patterns observed in Antarctica's lakes, so there is a possibility that they may find new critical information about the type of life that could have existed on the red planet. However, you wouldn't want to be there during winter. The lowest temperature on Earth that can be experienced is around -89 degrees Celsius. In 2010, there was an even lower temperature of approximately -93 degrees, and the sensation of that cold can be much worse due to strong and dry winds. Did you know that the size of Antarctica's ice surface also changes throughout the year? It is about 3 million square kilometers in summer, but expands to 19 million square kilometers in winter. However, despite the change, it remains the largest ice mass on Earth. Sorry, Arctic, you lost. Do you know these cute penguins? Consider these animals the locals because there is no native human population in Antarctica. It is a land of no one, as it does not belong to any country. But do you know who the real owners are? 5 different species of penguins, seals, and orcas. Ha ha ha. Despite the continent's harsh conditions, you can visit it as a tourist for fishing and research purposes. About 5,000 people reside there during the summer in research stations. But when winter comes, the number drops to about 1,000. The continent's ice sheet represents 70% of the world's freshwater reserves. Imagine what would happen if it melted. Global sea levels would rise by nearly 60 meters. Antarctica is the most remote continent on the planet. It holds 90% of the world's ice, but is considered a desert since the annual precipitation is only 200 millimeters. Looking at it, you would probably never imagine it was a desert, as it is white and full of wildlife. But this place is not just what it appears to be on the surface. There is a lot hidden beneath, and even above it. Atlantis has been a mystery to humanity. Did it exist? And if so, where was it? One theory suggests that the civilization of Atlantis could have thrived and developed on the Antarctic continent when it was not yet covered in ice. Due to Earth's cyclical periods, glacial and interglacial ages, it is believed that Antarctica was once a tropical forest. However, a recent Google Earth image found some intriguing ruins buried at the bottom of a lake on the frozen continent. It is unknown which civilization they belonged to, but some theorists believe it could very well be Atlantis. These frozen Antarctic lakes hold much more beneath them. In the 1970s, scientists were surprised to discover large bodies of water beneath the ice sheets of this continent. It is believed that there are more than 400 of them. Lake Vostok, for example, the largest subglacial lake in the region, lies beneath 3 kilometers of thick frozen layers. There are also untouched, hidden blue ice caves. The water in these lakes remains liquid due to small levels of geothermal heat from Earth's core. And scientists believe some lakes are around 15 million years old. Quite ancient times, right? Now, among the unique phenomena occurring on the continent, let's say Antarctica is home to an extremely strange waterfall. The year was 1911, when an Australian geologist became curious about the so-called blood falls. He was deeply intrigued by the sight of a red liquid flowing from a small slope between Antarctica's glaciers. After years of study, it was understood that the cause of the red coloration was the high iron content in the water. The final piece of the puzzle came when scientists discovered a nearby underground lake filled with this oxidized substance, which created the blood falls. Speaking of puzzles, this image can be quite intriguing. After all, why would anyone need to bring money to Antarctica? Well, first, a little history. In 1956, the United States founded the McMurdo Research Station, which remains the largest scientific center on the continent to this day. At its peak, this station hosted between 200 and 1,000 scientists, and they needed money to buy coffee, pizza, and other items for their daily needs. That's when Wells Fargo decided to install an ATM there. Oh, and they even set a Guinness World Record for it. The Wells Fargo ATM at McMurdo Station is the southernmost ATM in the world and the most isolated on the planet. There isn't another one for hundreds and hundreds of kilometers. The freezing temperatures in Antarctica can make the continent hostile to human life. In fact, Antarctica is the coldest, driest, and windiest continent on our planet. The average coastal temperature is around minus 14 degrees Celsius, but as you move inland, it gets even colder. Temperatures can drop to around minus 57 degrees Celsius. On the bright side, these freezing conditions can explain some mesmerizing phenomena, such as ice bubbles. These frozen bubbles inside some Antarctic lakes contain methane gas, which is released by melting glaciers and ends up freezing midair, creating a stunning and exotic landscape. Bet you never thought methane could be so beautiful, right? A few years ago, scientists were surprised by a giant hole the size of the Netherlands in an Antarctic lake. To give you an idea, it is roughly the size of Lake Michigan. These holes are called polynyas and are a natural phenomenon on the continent. But this is the largest one the scientific community has seen since the 1970s. Polynyas are massive holes in a sea of ice, and most occur along the continent's coast. However, this new one was found in the Weddell Sea, much farther from the shore. Experts are still trying to understand how this happened and what its implications are for the region's climate. There is a formation on the continent that looks like it was made by humans and has sparked various theories worldwide about its origins. Tell me, doesn't it look exactly like other pyramids built by humans? The only difference is that this is actually a natural rock formation that has existed for a long time. It was first discovered during an expedition in the 1910s and kept secret ever since. Nicknamed the Pyramid, its correct scientific name is Nunatak, which is simply a rock peak that protrudes above a glacier or ice sheet. There are other famous peaks that resemble pyramids, such as the Matterhorn in Switzerland. So no, this is definitely not a man-made structure, we are sure of that. And the list of fascinating discoveries on the frozen continent continues. An artificial intelligence program was analyzing a dataset in Antarctica when it stumbled upon something incredible. There could be up to 300,000 undiscovered meteorites in the continent's icy expanse. The truth is, meteorites have been falling on the continent for millions of years. But it was only 110 years ago that the first one was found. And guess what? Recently, researchers discovered a Martian meteorite in East Antarctica. It was the largest found in the last 25 years, weighing about 75 kilograms. Generally, fire and ice can be a tricky combination, so you probably wouldn't think Antarctica has an active volcano, right? But yes. The volcano, known as Mount Erebus, is the southernmost active geological structure in the world, with liquid magma and boiling lava for ages. In fact, it has been active for over 1 million years and is the second highest volcano in Antarctica, standing at 3,600 meters. We mentioned earlier that Antarctica wasn't always frozen. But could you imagine a vast tropical forest covering the entire continent? This is not science fiction. It is the absolute truth. Leaf and wood fossil marks clearly show signs of tropical trees in the region. Fossil research has also revealed something magnificent. Antarctica is home to the oldest worm in the world. According to National Geographic, sperm fossils found in Antarctica reveal an extinct species of worm dating back about 50 million years. Scientists say this discovery is more than important for studying evolutionary relationships. They also claim this was only possible because these samples remained frozen for thousands of years. Antarctica is a continent rich in biodiversity. Penguins, polar bears, and seals are just a few of the animals we know live there. But there is also a rare and fascinating species of fish that inhabits Antarctic waters, popularly known as the ice fish. This species is as bizarre as it is beautiful. It had to adapt to survive in Antarctica's cold waters, evolving into a truly unique being. Aside from its body, this fish has transparent blood, making it completely colorless. This happens because it lacks the protein hemoglobin, which gives blood its red color. Amazing, right? When you picture Antarctica, you probably think of icebergs, right? So here are some fun facts about them. Did you know that icebergs have a lifespan of around 3,000 years? And that just like in Greenland, Antarctica has more of them than anywhere else in the world. They can reach between 180 and 210 meters below the water's surface, with about 90% of their structure submerged. That's where the expression, "the tip of the iceberg," comes from. You're very welcome. See you next week with another curiosity. Stay curious.